Hey, how's it going, everybody? My name is Nick McHugh, and welcome to a very interesting podcast episode. My voice is probably super deep because it is like 6:15 in the morning. Um, I was I was taking a I actually tried to go to sleep earlier last night. I thought, you know what? I think I can go to bed at 10 p.m. My job usually starts at 10:45, so I feel I have the need to think to myself, oh well, I can stay up late. I could stay up till 2 and 3 and still make it to work on time. But last night I was thinking, well, I feel like getting some more sleep, so I'll try going to sleep like a normal person at 10 p.m. And lo and behold, my weird, shitty body thinks that it's taking a nap instead of going to bed because I'm going to bed, quote unquote, so early, as you can clearly see me with my fingers with air quotations. um, so yeah, it's my body thought it was taking a nap. Hello, Mr. Train. And it only got 5 hours of sleep, so I've been awake since 4 in the morning. So I tried to go to sleep. Obviously, that doesn't work. My body is particularly strange in the way that if I take a nap during the day or any other time that is traditionally I'm not usually asleep, my body will just say, okay, well, you lost those hours for going to sleep for your normal sleep schedule. Have fun trying to go to sleep for 2 hours. Maybe not ever go to sleep. So I'm in that predicament. So what have I been flicking my bick to? It's been a while. I've been trying to talk to Ben every now and then to see if we can get a scheduled time to do a podcast episode, but he's been pretty busy, so it just hasn't happened. Yeah, so it's gonna be a kind of a weirder podcast episode. To be completely honest, I'm not even sure if I will upload this. It's gonna be a weird one. It's gonna be a very personal one, but I think I thought about making this a YouTube video. Or writing it down somewhere, because I like writing down a lot of things. In fact, I'm surrounded by so many different notes and papers on my desk of just random things that I jot down or for D&D ideas and stuff. By the way, if you ever play D&D and become the dungeon master, good luck sleeping, because you'll either be too excited to go to sleep because you're excited for the next session, or you're thinking of like, God, how do I get this character to point A to point B, and you're just always planning things. But sorry, I'm rambling now. It's different doing a solo podcast episode. Really interesting. Okay, so what have I been flicking my bick to? Well, I just a lot of things. Yesterday, I finally got around to seeing Parasite. This will terribly date the episode, but Parasite won 2 Oscars, I think. I can never remember Oscars and those kinds of awards for media. I can never remember it. But I saw Parasite for the first time. Loved it. Holy crap, that I haven't been gripped by a story, a movie like that in such a long time. I won't get into spoilers, but you should definitely watch it. It blew my mind, and it was definitely probably the best movie of 2019, even though I didn't see it in 2019. And it's Korean, so that's even more cooler for me to watch it. Then kind of in a weird, I guess you could say, rut for voice acting. I've been still doing it. Voice acting is still always on my mind. In fact, I think I'll even try to do a monologue in this episode if I find the time, and I might record it later when I gotta get louder, gotta dig deep in those emotions when people aren't sleeping in the house. So yeah, I've been kind of in a rut because I've been really wanting to do it, but I kind of got burnt out because my one of my New Year's resolutions was I wanted to do maybe 10 auditions every week, and I did that for about a month and then got super burned out. It's kind of hard when I don't have my equipment in my recording area not always set up there. It's really hard. Then I have the notion of just need to warm up my voice, and that takes like 10 to 20 minutes doing that, and then gotta get in the frame of mind to voice act, gotta be feeling quirky on my toes, and kind of it's a weird process. Actors are very weird people, and doing that, even doing voice acting, is even stranger. So been kind of finding myself in a little bit of a rut. I've been still voice acting and sending auditions. I actually sent like 4 really awesome auditions a couple days ago. Felt like I did some of my best work. But yeah, speaking of voice acting, on Tuesdays I've been taking more voiceover lessons. I've taken quite a bit in the past 3 years. It's unfortunate for Tuesdays though, because I have 2 classes. One that actually starts today, Tuesday, as of this recording, at 6, and it goes till 9, I believe. Wow, that's a long class time now that I think about it. But the other class starts at, I think, 8:30. So the first class overlaps the second class by half an hour, so that's keeping me really busy. It's going to be really weird to have that kind of adjustment. It also kind of sucks that it was on a Tuesday, because that's one of my D&D nights or D&D nights. Sorry, I still can't pronunciate very well. It's still very late, early in the day, morning, evening. um so yeah, I had to tell those guys this D&D session, I'm not the dungeon master, I'm just a player, but these guys I've been playing for a while, and I just said, sorry, I have to do this, I have to take this class for the betterment of myself. So been pretty sad in that regards, kind of miss those friends quite a bit. I try to keep in touch with them and talk to them and send them weird gifs, however you want to pronounce that. So yeah, it's been a little bit odd in the realm of Nick McHugh. Oh yeah, that's kind of what I've been flicking my bick to as of late. D&D stuff always, voice acting always, and Parasite apparently. Wow, it is weird being here by myself. I think I can hear an echo. Hello, hello, hello. How are you? How are you? I asked you first. Okay, enough about the Grinch. Even though that movie is pretty much perfect. So, this podcast episode kind of stems from late night, can't go to sleep thoughts, just letting your mind wander while you try to go to sleep. It's never really a good situation. I don't think it's a good situation because one, you can't go to sleep, which messes up your sleep schedule horribly, and for someone that really likes their sleep schedule to be relatively the same, it's just a tragedy when you can't figure out, when you can't go to sleep when you want to. It just sucks. Two, unless you jot down, or unless you are someone like me that likes to write things down, you have these late night thoughts, and if you end up going to sleep, you may forget about them completely, and what good does that do? Even if you make it a point to remember it, you may remember it for when you wake up or for a little bit, but I in my experience, as soon as you get into the car to go to work, it's just gone. It's gone unless you write it down or it's something gravely important. It is just gone. Real quick, sorry about the if the audio quality is not good. I'm speaking kind of a hushed tone to not be as loud to wake up the other people living in the house, and two, my darn computer has been acting up probably since the last time we had a podcast episode that wasn't the other Nick episode, because we recorded that in a different spot. But my computer's fan has been really loud as of late, so I'll do my best to get rid of the background noises. But if you hear it, I'm sorry, and believe me, this hurts me way more than it would hurt anyone listening, because audio quality and audio fidelity is I sound dirty there, but it's my muse. If I produce something that doesn't have good audio quality, that just it physically hurts me inside. So yeah, late night thoughts. There's several Reddit pages about this, I'm sure, including shower thoughts, which is another important time when you think of stuff. So yeah, been thinking about the whole cosmetology, that might be the right word, cosmetology of, life, my life, and how things have been going and whatnot. And I've been struggling with a lot of things in the past, since I graduated high school, with friend dynamics and how I compare myself. Actually, that's probably not the best way to say it. Probably the better way to say it was how do I, Nick McHugh, fit in a group dynamic. Certainly when you leave high school, your life really starts to begin, because then you go to college, and you go to college for your interests. You meet people who are interested in the same fields as you are and the same things that you are in. Now, growing up all the way up to high school, that is not necessarily the case. It's more like you're stuck with a group of people who are the same age as you, and you share a lot of commonalities and bonds because you grew up together. You were around other people during your formulative years. That's a really weird word to say. And I call myself a voice actor. So yeah, growing up, going through all the way up to like high school, your friends you make, a lot of the times you kind of fall out of friendships when you leave high school, because everyone kind of goes off and does their own thing and follows what they want to do in life. And I feel like I'm definitely a weird case when it comes to that subject. I'm adopted, so my upbringing is certainly different than a lot of people. Certainly in a small town in Iowa with a pretty much only white community, so that's certainly already just weird enough. Growing up near kind of the end of high school, I'm sure if you're a quote unquote long time listener, because we have so many people that listen to this podcast, if you know me pretty well, or at least on an okay level, I was a pretty social butterfly growing up. I was involved with a lot of groups. I hate talking about myself. I really do, and I hate tooting my own horn. That also hurts me inside physically. I just don't like talking about myself. I just don't think I'm very interesting. But it's gonna sound really what's the word? Douchey. It's not the word I'm looking for, but it gets the point across. It sounds really douchey, but looking back, I kind of feel like I was a Ferris Bueller growing up in high school. Like I feel like I was okay with pretty much everyone. I feel like people either just didn't know me very well because they just didn't grow up around me, or they were just not in the same classes I was ever in. Um, or they pretty much people liked me, I guess. It sounds super douchey, I know, but I don't know. I felt like I didn't have too many people that didn't dislike me. And if they did a pretty good job of hiding it. I'm gonna stop talking about that because it makes me feel uncomfortable talking about myself like that way. So that being said, uh, after I got out of high school, most of my friends that I hung out near the end of my high school career were the upper echelon of the smartest kids in the school. These people had like class rankings of one, school rankings of one. Pretty sure I was just friends with the smartest person in our school for 4 years, pretty much. So I felt like the Joker in that regard. Like I didn't exactly belong with all these intellectuals of varying degrees of education. Um, Certainly, out of college, it certainly did change my perspective. Like they set a high bar for me in that regard. That, you know, I had to be better because my friends. Wow, why did I peek the microphone like that? Oh boy, weird episode. But yeah, they certainly set the bar for like what it meant for a person academically. They all went off to college, and I was just I watched all their backs leave off into the sunset as they drove off to go to college. I stayed here. I went to college about 15 minutes away. It was a community college that was somewhat kind of looked down upon because it's a community college. So, yeah, the bar was set pretty high for me, and I wanted to strive to catch up to them in a sense, even though I knew that I never would. Um, so, I feel like people that aren't social butterflies or don't thrive in high school do better once they're out of high school because they can actually do what they want to do and attend events and learn about things and be part of communities and social circles that they're actually a part of, and then they start thriving. However, people that thrive in high school, I feel, don't do as well because kind of, well, in the case of a small town, big fish in a small pond. You got someone that's super popular that social butterfly, everybody knows, everybody enjoys to have them around. They get comfortable with that sense of, well, I don't really have to try necessarily. That doesn't seem right either, but you probably get what I'm putting down. And then they go up to college and they had to kind of start all over, and they are back at square one with nobody knowing them. I feel like I'm part of that group. Again, that sounds super douchey, but I was pretty comfortable in high school, and going up to college, I didn't know what to do or who I was, and that ties back into being adopted because when you're adopted, especially from a foreign country, with most of the time people don't really know their family background or history, you really struggle to have some kind of identity, self and culturally. So for me, being a Asian American in small town Midwestern Iowa, where diversity doesn't really exist, it certainly was different and weird. I kind of became somewhat closeted, kind of kept to myself, and we'll get to that in a little bit, maybe. Don't want to talk forever for this episode, but yeah, I definitely didn't know what to do with myself. It wasn't until I started taking audio engineering classes that I was my class was me and 7 or 8 people, me included. So it was very, very small for like 6 or 8 classes of just 7 to 8 people all the time. And I felt like those guys that I went to college with, not necessarily similar boats for me, but they were, and this also sounds kind of bad, like different outcasts. They just followed the beat to their own drums, in a sense. Not all of them, but in a sense. I mean, we're going to school for audio engineering in a community college, which has a bad reputation, not in terms of academics, but in terms of, advancing in life kind of way. So, it was definitely weird, and it really didn't take us until 2.5 years to really bond with each other with just 8 people. For those like first 2 years, it was pretty much go to class, do the work, and then leave, maybe chit chat a little bit about an assignment, and then just leave. Until we had like one fateful class time before we went off to Thanksgiving break, where we had time. We were given like pretty much the keys to the sound recording studio, and then a bunch some of the musicians just brought their instruments, and then we just had a jam session, set up microphones, just played around. I will never forget that day. That day was incredible, so much fun. That's when I felt like we were starting to get the band. We're getting the band together, Bunch of audio engineering class or students just jamming out, listening to music, recording music. It was just fantastic. It's maybe one of my favorite days ever. It was just so wholesome. But during that time, or I should say, a little bit after that, I got a job working at a Target. This kind of opened me up to that D&D group that I went to on Tuesdays, and it kind of I met a lot of other people in that town. And a lot of people my age, a lot of people older, but still in this shitty town, kind of, not the one I grew up in, but a different town. So I was introduced to a lot of new people, and it was really hard for me to kind of open myself out and be myself around these people. Funnily enough, it took about 2.5 years for me to open up. And I think it stems from, that weird mentality of like, I don't know who I am. I was a big fish in a small pond. I have all these other high school friends that I did keep in touch with pretty well, actually. We went on a lot of summer trips. But, like, I should be where my high school friends, which I'm incredibly loyal to, I should be where they are at, but they're super smart, they're getting into relationships, they're all of them lived pretty much out of the state, and yeah, like, living by themselves and all that kind of stuff, and I felt like, I wasn't living up to I wasn't where I was supposed to be. And that kind of made me really reclusive and wasn't sure who I was or what I was supposed to do. And back then I was a lot less confident, but we'll get to that in a little bit maybe. So I kind of now, Nick BQ right now, kind of thinks that, I can't really be friends with anyone unless I'm around them for 2.5 years, which is ridiculous. I just feel that kind of not insecure, but way too cautious for no reason, really. I think it stems also from like me being just a really weird individual. Like, I'm a huge nerd, and that's typically not areas that most people are. And when I say huge nerd, I mean huge nerd. Not definitely not like what media would present what a nerd would be. So, anyways, I was finally got around to opening myself up and being myself to this new group of friends and other people in this different town. It took about 2.5 years, and it got me thinking that why did it take me this long to open up? Well, I think it's because I guess the core group of these people, two in particular, I don't want to say they're not socially. I don't want to say they're not social butterflies, but more along the lines of socially awkward isn't the word I'm looking for, but odd. They're just unorthodox, different, and this is gonna sound bad, but I mean this in no ill will, absolutely not. I don't know. I kind of realized that there was a gap to be filled for someone to kind of take charge, and I don't mean charge like, hey, I'm the leader of the group now. More like someone to be an example, to lead by example. I don't consider myself much of a leader, but I think that would be my best form of leadership is leading by example. So I kind of realized that there wasn't a huge social influx, maybe. I'm not even sure if I used that word correctly, but I kind of took charge and said, okay, I guess I'll be the talker of the group. And lo and behold, now a couple years later, I think I now known those guys for 5 years now. I'm kind of definitely a social butterfly, and I was thinking tonight, like, wow, I'm kind of reverted back to my high school self in regards to that group, like big fish in a small pond in that regard. So it's super weird, and this also stems back to why this thought process, because I haven't seen them in a while since I've been taking these voiceover classes, and it got me thinking. Kind of got in the weird mentality of like, wow, I am somewhat like realizing that I'm reverting back to college me in a way, in terms of like, well, I'm not taking charge. I'm not a big fish in a small pond since I'm pretty much by myself. So I had the thought like, huh. I'm making the connection, like realizing the steps in my personality, mentality, and psychology, psychology, that I've seen this before. This is a pattern, and that's not to say that I'm feeling recluse, or well, I am feeling reclusive since I'm by myself, but you probably understand where I'm getting at. I'm not great at explaining things. So that's one crux of for me wanting to talk this out. It's just kind of nutty for me to think that I'm realizing this social pattern that I'm learning about myself. So this next part is the main thing that I've been tackling for ever since I got out of college. This is the main thing that's been that wanted me to talk about this. So after I went off to college, and after everybody became successful in their lives, I kind of felt down, I guess, about still being in the same town that I live in. Still living in the same room I've lived in for 25 years, pretty much, and everybody being hot shots and whatnot. And so this weekend, I called up Matt and Abby. Abby's been on the show a couple times. Matt hasn't, which really needs to change. That I asked them, hey, I've been craving this restaurant, why don't we go out there? And hey, there's a new beer cave that opened up closer to us, why don't we go there? So we had a fun time there, and fun evening, and It was really nice. It really was. Most of the time nowadays, if I interact with people from high school, which I'm still very close to everybody that I was friends with in high school. This podcast is proof of that. But yeah, ever since I left high school, it's been weird to interact with them again. And oh, buzz, my phone goes off. Uh, I think it's because a combination of that big fish in a small pond. Everybody changed. Me feeling that I didn't know who I was, and then all my high school friends there, they went off to do bigger, better things, and they became different people as one does when you go through college and you're on your own and you become an adult. So everybody was different, better, but different in that regard. And then my mom passed away, and then that certainly changes a goddamn person. That will having someone very close to you in your life pass away unexpectedly and at such a pivotal time in your life, although it's never a great time for when someone passes away, really. Um, that certainly I certainly did love growing up. It took me a long time, and I'm still growing, still trying to figure out who I am. It definitely changed me. Certainly, kind of being somewhat more of a reclusive person from high school, and then having my mom pass away definitely didn't help much in that regard. Certainly in those first like 3 or 4 years. So going back to high school friends, I feel like my relationships with them has dwindled in terms of my personality. Now, what I mean by this is that um, I really don't have much in common with any of the close friends that I have with in high school, and this is I've been again been tackling this notion and this thought for years, literal years. Um, and I was thinking about this last night or this evening, trying to go to sleep. And I think it's because that, yeah, we just don't have much in common. The only thing that we have in common, the only thing that binds us, the only thing that we have a bond of is that we grew up together in a small town and all the way through high school. That's literally it. And I'll probably I'll go down a list of things that we don't have in common. So sorry, I ramble on so much and go on so many side tidbits. So apologies. So one popular thought that has gone around is for your current friends, would you be friends with them if you met them earlier in your life, or vice versa? Would you be friends with your old friends if they've never met you now? Hopefully I said that right, but you probably know what I'm getting at. So I was thinking this evening about would I be friends with the people that I'm friends with from high school that I still keep up with? And the answer was no. I really don't think I would be friends with them. Now, that's not to say that I would dislike them. They're very fascinating and interesting and hilarious people, but again, we don't have much in common. I probably won't name any names, but well, I'll name Ben because you guys know Ben. So me and Ben, we've known each other for a long time. Didn't really get to become real good friends until really high school. But he is definitely way more into sports than I am. And first, let me point out that I kind of consider myself a jack of all trades. Like, I find everything super fascinating, from like how to do heart surgery to how a cardboard box is constructed from like papers and recyclables. I think everything's fascinating to me. But Ben's much more into sports than I am. I like sports, but like I was stuck on and if I was stuck on an island and all I had was just ESPN, heck yeah, that sounds awesome. I've watched some sports. That sounds great. But do I follow other teams? Do I know the names of certain players? No, I don't. It's just something that it's just something that my other interests have a higher place for me personally. And while Ben is into video games and nerd stuff as well, um I feel that I clipped the mic again. I feel that most people nowadays are into the same things, and that's not to bash you, Ben, at all. Not at all. Just just we're just into similar things. Just I may go into them a little bit harder, maybe. Yeah, hopefully this doesn't come off like I'm bashing anybody. Yeah, I really hope it doesn't. So if we met at like a bar randomly, didn't know each other, walked in the bar, both had a drink at the table, um, I think Ben would just be watching sports, and I would probably be there just for a drink and then leave. And then he might try to talk to me about sports. I might make some idle conversation about sports, and I think that would be it. I think I would just walk out of the bar after I got my drink. So I don't think me and Ben would have been friends if we met now. Certainly you can be, certainly for most people, you can become friends if you are stuck in the same room or like in the same community for long enough. Certainly, hell yeah, that happens all the time. That happens to me, that happens to everybody. But for just like chance meeting in that regard, I don't think we would be friends anymore. Going down the list, another friend we have, male, super smart, one of the smartest people I know. For people that know me and are that listen to me and our friend group, you probably will be able to identify everyone that I'm talking about. So, yeah, no way to be subtle about that. But anyways, super smart guy that I know, close friends. We, at least in high school, we shared a lot of the same thought processes, ideas. I should say thought processes in terms of like how we think. No, not even that. More like we shared a lot of intellectual aspirations and desires. I think that's a really good way of explaining that. But super smart guy, as I said, for the eighth time. Now, he considers himself an athlete, which I kind of do. Like I like being active, and I try to run 15 miles every day. So, or every day, 15 miles every week. I try to do that. And I like, and I enjoy working out as well. But he does a decently amount more focused athletics. I think that's a good way to put it. And he's involved with a lot of schooling, and some other stuff, stuff that I don't even know about. So we have a weird relationship. I always kind of see I kind of give me and another person like a duo names. For me and him, it's definitely brains and the weird, not brawn and brains. Weird and brains. He's definitely the smart one, and I like to consider myself someone that's creative and thinks outside the box. So that really helps me being weird, and seeing my ideas through this friend's intelligence. And this intelligent person, I don't want to say he's not creative, but he's able to think about things in different ways if I try to explain a crazy idea to him. That part of our relationship I absolutely love. But if we just met for the first time, I think he would think I was a dumbass, pretty brash, pretty, gung ho, going in guns a blazing, not really thinking too much. Not that I do that all the time, but I do that all the time. So I don't think we'd be friends nowadays. So continuing down the list, I have another male friend, super quirky, super hilarious. Love this guy. He would is definitely a I don't want to say one-liner kind of guy, but he's definitely has some interesting things. The things that he comes out of his mouth are wild and crazy and hilarious. I love this guy. Been friends with him for such a long time. He's really into politics and just not really like, you know, hard politics like you should be a Republican kind of or a Democrat in kind of that regard. Mostly like he likes studying politics, and I'd like to say that I find politics interesting and just how it shapes the world and a society and a people, but I don't follow politics really closely. And that regard, and he's definitely probably the weirdest person out of our group, excluding me. Again, that sounds really douchey. But I think if we met today, I think we just wouldn't have too much in common. Now, kind of going back to tying all this back together, the things that really we have in common with my high school friends are we grew up together, and maybe like have some video games that we cherish that we used to play growing up. So yeah, me and this friend like when the 360 was really popular. Halo and Call of Duty was in its prime. We both really like the N64. So kind of stuff like that. But yeah, I don't. I just think that he and I would just not really have much to talk about outside of that. So. And there's a really interesting point that I'll get to about this. There's this one gal in our group. She's probably, I don't want to say the glue that holds our group together, but she's definitely one of our figureheads for our group. Mostly because she's the really quirky person. Very very smart. Very interesting person. I How do I describe this person? She's definitely the least nerdy person out of our group. Absolutely. She's just a wild card, really. I I honestly don't think that she would even look at me or do a passing glance at me if we pass each other on the street or something. We really, me and her especially, out of probably everyone, really don't have anything in common. Like I'm flabbergasted, absolutely flabbergasted that we're still friends, really, because she's probably the most successful person out of our group. I'd argue. Yeah, we don't have anything in common. Like the most, I feel like for most of my role in the group is just nowadays is just hey, I know one or two pop culture references. I say a funny thing every now and then. That's about it. Another guy's way funnier, maybe more creative than I am. Yeah, super shocked that this person even still knows me in that regard. And again, this is under the context of us not meeting now for the first time. I 100% don't think we'd be friends. We have nothing in common. Yeah. Moving on. I have another female friend. We have very interesting history. Mr. Train. It's very early in the morning. Well, it's 7:05. It's 7:05. Holy shit, the sun is out. Sorry, I'm pulling back the curtains for the first time. I pretty much just live in my room where curtains are always drawn. So I have this other friend, which we certainly have an interesting history. I don't think we don't really have too much in common either. Yeah, she's into like things like Star Wars and Marvel and stuff like that. So I do chalk that up to being nerdy, but I feel like there's a term I have for that. I feel like that's kind of jock nerdy, and when I mean my definition of what it means to be a jock nerd is to be like into the mainstream kind of things, you know, like Star Wars, Marvel, for video games like Call of Duties, sports games, maybe like Last of Us, those kinds of like AAA games, like mostly being into those types of games. I call that being a jock nerd. So I don't think she's necessarily a jock nerd, but her nerdiness definitely extends. I feel like only to those types of pop culture stuff. So we had such a weird relationship, and it's kind of turned pretty sour. I won't get into the details of that, and I don't mean sour by like bad, just like there's definitely some caution and friction between us of uncertainty, which is totally warranted. Um, and thinking about the crux of it, uh, I feel like she's also somewhat more of a reclusive, down to earth person. I shouldn't say I'm necessarily down to earth, but definitely someone that is more inclined to keep to themselves. So I feel like if we met for the first time nowadays, there might be something there for a friendship, but I don't think it would go too much farther than a maybe on that. Um, so if anyone listening to this that knows any of the people I'm describing, I'm sorry. I totally didn't mean to offend. That wasn't the intention. Just kind of voicing my inner machinations of my mind, and just kind of going through what ifs, because if there's anything about me that you need to know, is that I'm always thinking of what ifs. I'm always running scenarios in my head. So we have another gal in our group, newer gal to our group, that is kind of been part of our group for maybe the past 2 or 3 years, maybe. So this is someone that did not grow up with us in high school. This person, I love this person to death. She's incredible. She's awesome. Really interesting. She's so funny, and her charm is very endearing. So this person was not part of our group growing up, as I said, for the 8th time. So for me personally, interactions with her, it's so weird. I was just thinking about this last night. Like, why is our relationship different than my high school friends? You know, why am I connect so well with her now than I do with my other high school friends? Now, she is a boyfriend of one of our group members. I guess I kind of gave that away. Anyways, I only said that because to make a point here, which is any friends that I have that get a girlfriend, I go ham on them. Like I just ham it up. Like I flirt with them all the time, because we both know it doesn't lead to anything, and I'm not serious about it, and it's just all in good fun. So this person, I'm talking to them and meeting them now, past college, past my mom being dead, and it's like I have my confidence back. I feel like I'm a big fish in a small pond again, for whatever reason with this new person. I feel like I'm. It's weird. I feel like I'm in a mix of like I'm confident with people that I'm meeting for the first time, and also not very confident because it takes me about 2.5 years to really feel comfortable with them. I think that might be it. I think it's because I know that obviously the boyfriend accepts her, the group accepts her, so naturally I would accept her as well. I think that's the reason. Huh. Look at me talking through my problems and thought processes and whatnot. So yeah, I think that might be it. So I'm able to talk to her with Eyes on by hate. I love saying that. It's such a funny phrase. You can use that in so many funny situations. But yeah, since we have no um past history, really, we can get to discover each other how we are now. And for me personally, that's probably, oh, I don't know, probably a better thing than if we met each other earlier. Because even though now we don't have anything in common, we're able to build a new friendship, if that makes any sense. It's super interesting and fascinating to think about it that way. But yeah, like we're able to connect on new things like you would in, like I said before, like people connect after college and during college with communities that with shared interests. So now we're able to really, since we know each other better as people individually, we're able to kind of be interested in things that other people say and just that kind of regard. Huh. Very interesting. And that kind of defeats the entire question I've been posing this entire time, which is would we be friends now if we didn't, or would we still be friends now if we met today instead of when we were growing up because we're meeting for the first time? Now, I guess I could go with the inverse of that and say, would we be friends growing up then if we met like when we were much younger? I don't know. She has hinted that she's had a interesting past. I'm not sure if I believe that. And that's not to say I doubt her necessarily. I just don't know. But I can maybe see it, but I can also maybe not see it. Seeing what we're into, we're probably fairly different people in that regard. I don't know. I think it's a lot harder saying would we be friends earlier in life versus the inverse. Those words are confusing to me, so I'm just gonna yada yada it. So yeah, those have been thoughts that I've had for years, since like 2012, really. Especially more recently, since I've discovered I'm a little bit more socially awkward around my high school friends than I am with newer friends. Sorry to go off on a tangent. I don't want this episode to be too long, but I made another interesting tip point about this whole shebang, and that is, besides the college, or I call them, or well, no, I shouldn't say college friends, but the friend group that I have after college and high school friends. I also have another group of high school friends that I have. These are friends that they're older than me, and these friends definitely 100% we are into the same things and we grew up together, so that's pretty big. That's a double whammy right there. Super hard into nerd things, and just we all love the same nerd things. We grew up together. I said that for the 8th time. I'm really bad at talking, guys. I really am. And so here's an interesting tidbit. So you have the same common interests, and we grew up together. That's fine and dandy. So we recently, or I shouldn't say recently, kind of maybe definitely 3 to 4 years ago, maybe even closer to 5 really now, we have and this is the D&D group that I'm referring to. I'll call them the D&D group because that's what I call them naturally. So most of the guys in this D&D group, the one that I DM specifically, there's me, another guy, and another guy. This group, us three, have been really close friends growing up. We kind of, when we started playing D&D, we introduced another guy who was in the same grade as the other two guys. A lot of guys here, guys. Who one of them pretty much said that he's kind of a closeted nerd. He's into a lot of nerd stuff too. Not as much, certainly not as much of the stuff that we're into, but nerd into different things. He's into a lot of like Greek culture and stuff. Pretty learned in that nature. Hilarious guy. I love this man to death. He's one of my favorite people on planet Earth. But we generally we know him, because he grew up, not with the other two dudes, but he was in the same class, so they knew each other. And two of them, like, including me, I guess, we played a lot of World of Warcraft, so we knew each other. Me and him knew each other okay enough. We were acquaintances until we became really close friends. So we had four guys that were relatively grew up together in the sense that it's the same town, same school, knew the same people pretty much. So when we started playing D&D, we introduced from the start, a new guy. And this guy, I don't think any of us knew until he started working at Newman's Thriftway back in the day. He also, I think he went to alternative school. I don't remember his upbringing, but I think it was Tabor maybe. But anyways, essentially he lived in the same town, just didn't go to school with us. I think he might be the oldest out of everyone. I don't know. I'll have to ask him. Anyways, so he's essentially a brand new guy that we met after college, essentially, during that era. So it's really weird because, like, he's definitely with me and the two other guys are super into nerd stuff. Like, he's super into nerd stuff as well. But he's like I said earlier, like, newer, like, we didn't know the guy before we started playing D&D and started bonding. And that kind of goes all the way back to, like, you know, would we be friends now and that whole shebang? And I think we would, because we were all into the same nerd stuff. And even if we grew up together, would we be friends? And I think we would, because we'd be into the same nerd stuff. And I think we'd be friends, and obviously we're friends now during post-college years because we're into the same nerd stuff. So where am I going with this? Mostly I'm finding that, like, having commonality and bonds really makes people stick around, whether it be you grew up together or you didn't grow up together. That really solidifies friendship. Going back to my high school friends, we're still friends, and we will probably always be friends, but there's definitely I've been feeling that I'm definitely missing something. There's definitely a piece of me that's not there, that's in the past. I don't Here's the thing. I don't know how to act around my high school friends because I'm so much of a different person and they're different people, and I'm learning that we don't have anything in common, really. So it's just really weird and fascinating, and it's what keeps me up at night, certain nights. Just, it's so weird and odd. Yeah. I think that I've said my piece. Yeah. Wow. This is so. Yeah. It's That's a wrap. You know, I'm hungry. It's 7:20 in the morning. I actually need to do some auditions for some voice acting this morning. So, and my voice is semi warmed up. So, yeah. If you managed to listen to this all the way, listen to my shitty pronunciation and me repeating the same things 8 times, I thank thee. I thank thee a lot. And if you're someone that I know, or you know someone and you're offended, I totally is not the case. You should know by now that I don't want to offend anyone. It's definitely not my MO. It's definitely something that I don't want to do. It's just my inner thoughts, and let's be honest, no matter how much a person says they don't judge anybody or have thoughts about someone, they do. we're human. It's an innately human thing to be judgmental. You're just not as vocal about it. Yeah. So if I offend you, I'm sorry. I really didn't mean that. And if you do have something to say, then let's talk about that. I'd be really interested to hear more about that. Whether it might end in a yelling contest, which I really hope it doesn't, or just to elaborate, hopefully, maybe, if you're listening to this and you're one of those high school friends, it might open up a conversation. Maybe it might help me understand me more. Maybe it might help understand you more. Maybe it might help understand our relationship more. Relationships are very interesting to talk about, whether it be romantic or friendship. Yeah. It's fascinating. Well, anyways, I need to rest my voice because I still need to talk a bunch. So, thank you guys for listening. If you're listening this long, I'll hopefully catch you soon. See you guys later.